Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Maximizing 5G Efficiency, Seamless Provisioning, and Performance Testing. We are delighted to have you join us for this session, co-hosted by Evolving Systems and HeadSpin, where we'll discuss key strategies to optimize 5G service provisioning, enhance network performance, and ensure security compliance. Let's begin by addressing why does this webinar matter? As 5G adoption accelerates, operators are encountering a range of complex challenges, including first, managing increasing service complexity in network deployments, ensuring seamless provisioning to meet growing demand, third, navigating security and compliance requirements in a rapidly evolving landscape, and lastly, optimizing performance to maintain quality and reliability. So the big question is, how can service providers enhance efficiency, strengthen security, and scale effectively while keeping pace with the evolving 5G landscape? And that is where Evolving Systems and HeadSpin come in. With over 30 years of experience, Evolving Systems specializes in helping communication service providers or CSPs optimize every stage of the customer lifecycle, offering solutions like complete eSIM lifestyle management and customer value management programs to drive growth and loyalty. On the other hand, HeadSpin, with global presence across 50-plus countries, enables businesses to test, monitor, and optimize digital experiences across devices, browsers and networks, and smart TVs through AI-powered insights, predictive analytics, and real-time performance monitoring. Together, Evolving Systems and HeadSpin provide a powerful combination of telecom expertise and AI-driven performance optimization, helping you to simplify 5G service provisioning for efficiency and scalability, optimize network performance through AI-driven testing and real-time monitoring, and to ensure compliance, security, and automation in a complex 5G ecosystem. Before we start the session, we have a few house rules to ensure a smooth and engaging experience for everyone. The webinar will last approximately 1 hour, wherein 40 minutes of the time will be for the presentation, followed by a 20-minute Q&A session. Please keep your microphones muted during the presentation to minimize background noise. We encourage everyone to participate. Please type your questions in the chat or Q&A box or send them directly to me, Katrina Ibarra, via direct message at any time during the session. To maintain focus, please ensure your devices are on silent mode throughout the webinar. Finally, we value your feedback. At the end of the webinar, a link to the survey will be posted in the chat and will also be sent to you via email. And with that, let's get started. For our first session, Maximizing Value Through Seamless 5G Service Provisioning, leading this discussion is Ramkrishna Yadla, Senior Solution Consultant at Evolving Systems. With over 20 years of experience in the mobile industry, Ramkrishna's career began at the onset of 2.5G technology, and he has since been at the forefront of mobile network advancements, from early generation networks to today's cutting-edge 5G innovations. He has held key roles across software development, companies, and mobile network operators, giving him deep expertise in network evolution, service provisioning, and telecom solutions. With that, I'll now hand it over to Krish to take us through the session.
Thank you, Bianca, for that. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Before I start, I'm just going to switch off my video because I am worried a little bit about bandwidth on my side. So apologies for that, but bear with me. Stop. Can everybody see my desktop?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Well, once again, thank you, Bianca, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for attending and providing your time for this webinar. I certainly hope you'll find it informative for your professional roles wherever you work. As Bianca has mentioned, I'll be talking to you about provisioning and the effect 5G networks has had on the core network for mobile operators with regards to service provisioning, which is based on our, when I say our, I mean Evolving Systems, 30 years of experience of developing and delivering products and solutions in the space. So just before we delve into provisionings and the nitty-gritty of that, I would just like to recap a little bit about the challenges and of what 5G provides. I would like to provide a quick overview of the goals of 5G from a technology perspective since the release of 3GPP release 16 specs, sorry, release version 16 of the 3GPP specs, which is at the point of where really the standalone 5G network was really clearly well defined. The initial goals of 5G was all about enhancement of speed and improving latency and throughput over the capabilities of the LTE network. And as such, there are many mobile operators across the world who we've been working with and where we have seen implementations where we have noted and seen 100% improvement on speeds of up to 200 Mbps, which facilitates use cases where around enhanced mobile broadband or EMBB. We've also seen with 5G the reduction in latency almost close to zero, although that's theoretical. In the real world, it's been close enough. And with the reduced latency, any use case around 5G which requires ultra reliable low level latency, then it kind of lends itself very well to those use cases. I'll touch upon the use cases in the next slide. Another big ticket item of 5G was the connection density, which has improved significantly, almost up to about 1 million devices within a square kilometer, which allows more devices to be connected to the network, allowing for more requests coming in from devices, and this lends itself very well to what we call massive scale mobile communication or IoT, industrial IoT. Because 5G uses shorter wavelengths and higher frequency, location tracking has also been significantly improved, which allows for a new set of use cases opening up to mobile operators like asset tracking, so inventory, vehicle tracking, so on and so forth. So that's the sort of genesis of 5G and what 5G from a technology perspective provides us. Now I'd just like to provide a brief overview of the use cases that we see in the market. As I said on the previous slide, they're broadly categorized according to the business needs. So EMBB, or whether it's EMBB or MMTC or URLLC, or setting up a private network which utilizes the network slicing feature of 5G. It's very apparent that the thinking in 2G, 3G, and even LTE world, when we talk about mobile operators, everything was subscriber focused. So we believe that's no longer valid to think of the subscriber as a person. Although subscriber data will remain, the structure of subscriber data records will be much more sophisticated and larger. driving more offerings and more systems to drive and maintain the data in the core network. Additional channels beyond the traditional CRM might be required to support these use cases, where we have industries where you're supporting different businesses, which invariably brings us to provisioning, because now that you're increasing the number of offerings, there's a need to translate the customer-facing services or offerings onto the network equipment that is required to fulfill the offerings. So, and these offerings can be fulfilled either by provisioning a single or a multitude of systems. Our experience, and I'm sure many of you on this call will concur, that it's very rare for services to map cleanly to provision features on network equipment. You will always find issues with feature conflicts, services needing features enacted in multiple places, or data integrity issues. In addition to that, to ensure that mobile operators can have a streamlined and seamless provisioning flow, the system that you have and will need to cater for the long-tail legacy network access technology. So not only does the system of provisioning needs to focus on 5G, we also need to ensure that 4G networks or the 3G networks in some cases are being provisioned as well. So 5G non-standalone services have been commercially available based on release 15 and 16 onwards, where we've had the standalone specifications for 5G confirmed and well defined. So operators are based on these releases have deployed either standalone networks or non-standalone networks. Now, if we take a step back from the 5G use cases we just looked at and just think about the subscriber for a second. So the graphic provides a simplified view of what 5G non-standalone and standalone radio access showcasing control and the user data path through which the customer gets connected to the data network. That in itself produces significant, I wouldn't say issues, but complexity. Because if you think about 3GPPs are at release 15, the SIM card and eSIM card, which is the identity token which is used to authenticate against the network. It's only the specifications of release 15 that are compatible and are supported by the 5G standalone network. So in order to provision a subscriber on a 5G SA, 5G standalone network, we would need device compatibility to a very specific SIM or eSIM and the versions. So that's a very immediate, a simple constraint which introduces provisioning challenges in different ways across self-service channels, your customer care channels, and retail. The device and SIM type a customer chooses introduces that complexity. So if, for example, a 5G non-standalone plastic SIM card can be upgraded with a 5G standalone SIM card in a SIM swap process, 5G standalone can only be provisioned if that SIM being issued meets the release specs of version 15. But you have the device can only support an earlier version. So then the device that is being used also comes into the picture, which also then creates additional challenges. So in this particular scenario, let's say an operator's issued out release 15 SIM cards, but the device only supports the eSIM spec from release 10 or 12, then this customer is forced to make a choice to have a service on the non-standalone network rather than the standalone network, which offers superior service quality and speed. So that's a very simple example of how complex provisioning within mobile operators um, is and what we feel is, and that's one simple example. There are a multitude of things when we could start looking at the legacy access technologies and how those are managed, and also then just kind of thinking about all those use cases we talked about, how that would be affected. So assuming the overall objective for mobile operators is simplify provisioning and enhance customer experience, the mobile operator really need to ensure that the provisioning system and their vendor are on top of all the changes occurring in the world of standards, whether that's 3GPP or TMF. And the system that they have is highly configurable in the event it does not support self-sufficiency to implement these changes, which is really the only constant in mobile telecom space. Since my 20 years, it's always been change. Um, and then the vendors of your platforms need to ensure there's a release cadence. If they don't support self-sufficiency, that there's a release cadence for supporting the velocity of change coming through the various standards bodies. Um, so if you look at the impact on from moving into the 5G use cases that we talked about around enhanced mobile broadband, the massive machine communication and ultra reliable low latency communication use cases, then adding all of those up and throwing that into the mix, along with device types, along with SIM card versions, that creates the first level of challenges. Then you have to look at the different operating models, because now if you're looking at a 5G use case of a private network, is very different from a use case of supporting subscribers, prepaid or postpaid, or whether it's a business entity. The fact that we've opened up the market, or opened up the possibilities, then your CRMs systems, your customer-facing solutions need to be up to speed. If there's any manual processes in the entire flow from acquiring customer to provisioning it on the network, then it's they will very quickly become a headache. So that will increase complexity. It will make some of your OSS, BSS systems potentially redundant if we're not thinking about all of these things. And the product portfolio, which becomes complex. It's not just a simple, a voice and a data service anymore. It's the level of quality of service that you want. You can, because 5G is so configurable, and you can create virtual networks on top of a physical network, which is effectively a private network. The offerings become very, very complex very, very quickly. And all of that could potentially result in high cost of operations and a massive impact on customer experience. And then obviously you think about the technical side of it, where you're creating these workflows to provision these complex systems. Sometimes they could be, to facilitate that, you might need to communicate with over 30 or 40 systems downstream in terms of network elements. Then the whole cycle becomes very long, and there's a lot of inflexibility, a very low chance of getting it right first time, and yeah, the impact is high cost. I've got a couple of quotes there, which I'm not going to go through, from operators that we've talked to. The other area of 5G which needs a mention is around security. So security has always been at the forefront of mobile networks, and that was typically guided by the various standard bodies, mainly 3GPP and ETSI. And then through the years, data protection came along, and that was mandated then by governments through I use the GDPR, but there are various versions of GDPR across the globe. But data protection was something that came in later. Now, according to some reports provided by CrowdStrike, since I think 2017 and 18, they kind of generate reports. So one of the reports they kind of recently, or maybe not recently, around 2020, 2021, highlighted that there have been more than a dozen mobile network operators across the world that have been infiltrated by hacking groups. And it was stated that what the compromises that occurred, or what the hackers were targeting, were basically Linux systems in mobile telecom environments, where there was an interaction with Windows host. And there have been instances where subscriber information and call record details have been compromised. There was another unrelated instance. So that CrowdStrike report was not based on this, but in a completely unrelated incident, there was a major data breach which occurred in one of the European mobile operators, again, where telephone calls were intercepted and data of millions of subscribers, including phone calls of ministers and government officials, were compromised. Obviously, that wasn't viewed with a kind eye, and there was the fallout of that was that that particular operator had to pay a substantial fine. When they kind of started digging into the reasons of how it happened and what happened, it's found out that some of the issues were around poor data protection, impact assessment, anonymization, and inadequate security measures. So, bearing that in mind, there have been a lot of government regulations being enacted. So, in the UK, in the last year or so, there's a new act around mobile operators, because now it's viewed as critical infrastructure. In Europe, there was NIS 1, and that's been updated to NIS 2. And in the US, there was CISA and NIST. And these regulations kind of are all around cybersecurity, how making sure that mobile operators and their vendors are following certain procedures when it comes to security. And that kind of increases the compliance burden on mobile operators themselves and any software vendors that serve mobile operators. The enhanced security all comes from that part of the regulation. In the past, there used to be trust building, so we'd have VPN set up, but now we're looking at is almost a lot of the direction of travel seems to be in zero trust. So that's something that needs to be kept on top of. Risk mitigation is an interesting area where in the past you would find operators using black boxes or a vendor's provisioning system, whereas now it becomes very difficult to manage a black box system when there's so much change about where systems are inflexible, cannot support a multitude of network vendors, equipment, so on and so forth. So a lot of the operators we speak to do look at vendors who are independent of network equipment vendors. So that's a key thing around risk mitigation from their perspective. So that's a big security impact. So some of the key areas that we believe operators should be focusing on, so specifically around the 5G use cases, we think by adopting a system that has intelligent provisioning techniques, which, for example, could be a comparison of customers' existing and predicted network states, and that provides substantial benefits over a traditional sequential activation approach, because it allows for early detection of conflicts between existing and required network settings even before the provisioning commences. It curtails the number of commands sent to the network, thereby mitigating the risk of errors and discrepancies. Um, and a good provisioning system should only provision the delta and not the between the customer's network states, rather than the entire sequential flow. Just keep going through a sequential flow, and that will improve performance. A provisioning system's function is to interpret a subscriber order depicted as an assortment of technical services and align these with the necessary configurations in a series of network databases contained within network elements. It's really important then when operators are looking for a provisioning system, that that system is capable of abstracting the service model, which is effectively the features, from the provisioning workflow, which is more business orientated around how many links there are to network, the downstream network elements, how does the retries work, what happens in failure, rollbacks, all those kind of things. So all of those things should be configurable and very flexible while processing service orders. As a part of the 5G core, the home, the HSS, which used to be in the LTE world, will transition to what they call a Unified Data Management, which is UDM, which will likely encompass a more intricate data model. And although the UDM's purview is broader, covering fixed and convergent services, it essentially functions as a HSS. And then with the advent of 5G, each subscriber may have several network slice options. It means that a larger volume of data needs to be provisioned in addition to the current provision. To fulfill these new requirements, the system will need to allow for early detection of conflicts between existing and required network settings, even before provisioning commences, curtail the number of commands sent to the network, thereby mitigating risk of errors and discrepancies, and provide provisioning across both hybrid landscapes, including virtualized and non-virtualized domains. So that's very key in terms of the 5G use cases. In terms of a technology refresh, we believe that provisioning systems should be modular and can be incrementally improved, with a drive to move a lot of the infrastructure, mobile operators' core infrastructure, into the cloud. We need systems that have been supporting mobile operators throughout the years to kind of keep up with the times, so that systems can be migrated into the cloud. So they need to support containerization. They need to support open source software as well. That introduces its challenges from a security perspective, but those should be addressed by your vendors, because open source software allows for greater use of cloud technologies for monitoring systems, delivering data, providing data analysis, and all those kind of things. And then, most importantly, one of it is ensuring that the vendors of your systems implement a secure development and deployment process, and that's matched by the mobile operator as well when they're deploying the software. So one of the key things is, moving forward, we foresee with all the regulation that's coming out that access to the network is going to become harder and harder, and a lot of the deployments will be automated. So in order to follow that process and to ensure there are no security threats or holes, we envisage that both vendors and mobile operators will need to work together to get that secure deployment process in place. And as already mentioned, the regulatory and standards compliance. So you need to ensure various releases or standards are adhered to in the product, whether that's through product releases or updates. TMF, 3GPP, ETSI keep coming up with new regulations, amongst others. Vendor compliance to regulation area, cybersecurity, and secure deployment methodologies. That's all things that we believe mobile operators should be focused on when looking at their provisioning system and wondering um, how they move forward if their current system isn't performant enough. And with that, I shall end my points. So thank you very much for listening. If anybody's got any questions, or are we going to keep them to the end?
Thank you, Krish. Now let's move into our second session, driving next level performance, testing your 5G network. Right. Leading this discussion is Siddharth Singh, Senior Product Manager at HeadSpin. With 10 years of experience specializing in product strategy, solution consulting, and delivery, Siddharth has worked extensively across telecommunications and other key industries. He brings deep expertise in helping telcos enhance their testing landscape and optimize user experiences, particularly in the 5G era. His background in data analytics, visualization, and large scale telco engagement allows him to understand and address the unique challenges service providers face today. With that, I'll now hand it over to Siddharth to guide us through this session.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you, Krish, for an amazing webinar. I'd like to continue and build on top of what just Krish presented. So while I was preparing for this webinar, I realized how fast telco has evolved and how important it has become in today's life. If you consider a consumer like me, myself, yourself, or if you talk about businesses. So it's important for both. So I kind of decided to use my own life experiences to drive today's discussion, which is maximizing 5G efficiency and delivering seamless performance and user experience for the telco users. So I'll start with the telco evolution story. It started with copper wired communication services way back in 70s, 80s when I wasn't even born. Then in 80s to 90s, we saw a little bit of boom of dial-up internet spreading rapidly into enterprises, but very slowly in households, especially in the Eastern Hemisphere, if you talk about it. Then slowly and steadily, mobile also came into picture, 80s, 90s, it rapidly expanded, but it was very costly, especially for the B2C users. But slowly and steadily, by 2000s, it became the core mode of communication. And we saw the evolution of 3G, 4G, and 5G. And in the wireless sections, we saw broadband evolution and fiber to the home. And now, at least in India, air fiber is also becoming very popular, which is nothing but a use case of FWA. Now, slowly and steadily, as the user adoption increased, we saw that telco was the backbone of bringing all sorts of experience into users' hands, be it again consumer or a B2B customer. So if I talk about, for example, a consumer B2C segment, let's start with gaming industry. I myself am a gamer. 10 years ago, I couldn't even imagine playing an online cricket or a wrestling game on internet with a friend who is sitting in America, like 12 hours time zone difference. I couldn't even imagine. I had to sit with him in the same place and do the gaming session. Such was the latency issues for the gaming consumers. Now, if we talk about media, again, I am a movie buff. I like to watch movies every weekend. But again, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, in emerging economies like India, it was very difficult to imagine that I would be able to, stream 4K HD, movies at my home with a single click of a button. So again, 5G, 4G, or the whole of telco, they have brought a lot of consumables into the hands of consumers. Same goes with B2B as well. They have provided, like Chris showed a very interesting slide where there were multiple use cases of 5G industries, be it healthcare, be it smart operations in manufacturing and industrial domain, things like that. Everything is there. Now, slowly and steadily, from becoming a backbone of these things, telcos are becoming techcos themselves. I'll give you an example. Like Geo. Geo earlier used to provide broadband services, Wi-Fi services, and B2B services offerings to various segments. Now, slowly and steadily, they are using their own telco infrastructure to expand into various domains. One of them is they have become the largest OTT aggregator in South Asia. They have 50 million plus users on their OTT platform, which they have launched recently on 14th of Feb. It's an acquisition of Disney Hotstar, and they have launched Jio Hotstar. Basically, they are using their own telco infra to deliver, at least content of 20 plus studios across India, a country of 140 crore people. So how are they ensuring that they can just choose a date to launch such a service to 140 crore people? There has to be a secret. So where does the secret lie? So let's read about certain interesting insight that we have heard. 81% of the companies, including telcos, are actually competing mostly or completely on the basis of user experience. Nobody is just focusing on functionalities of their offerings or their applications. 53% of mobile users will leave a website if it takes more than 3 seconds to load a website, especially for banking and retail customers. So imagine you are a telco provider. I am a user. I am using your network to purchase my day-to-day, items like vegetables and all. If I see that the page load time from login to the landing page, or the search response time of finding my most favorite beverage in the retail app is getting impacted due to poor network conditions or network latency, I'll wait for a month maybe, and I'll switch. So 40% of telco customers are actually likely to switch providers solely based on poor user experience. So it's a mix of both. If you are a telco to techco story, you need to ensure that your own service offerings and digital offerings are being perfectly delivered to the end customers. Or if you are providing network as a backbone to other companies' digital services and offerings, then also you have to ensure that the last mile network experience is flawless. That is the scale of the importance of experience according to my perception. Now going to the next slide. Yeah. So as we all know, there have been traditional testing approach. There are multiple network testing tools available in the market, and I am not undervaluing them, underplaying them, undercutting them. No, they are all important. But we'll have to think about more. Are you able to gauge the network experience from end user perspective? Okay, you can do network testing, you can optimize your infrastructure, but are you able to visualize, quantify the impact on the user experience? Is it really working out? Do you have the relevant data? Do you have the infrastructure across various geographies where you plan to expand your services or expand your infrastructure? Maybe, maybe not. Now, the problem is having multiple tools and multiple solutions. It gives you inconsistent results. Okay, every tool, every solution have their own ways of handling, data, handling problems. And if you put everything together, you might be able to see results, but not 360-degree view. Or even if it's there, it might be that there will be like 60-70% accuracy, which is very low in this highly competitive market. Also, if you rely on redundant tasks and all, these are low value tasks. You might want to automate a lot of stuff. So that is also required, which sometimes still exist in the traditional testing approaches. Now coming to the performance testing, again, like I said, performance and experience evaluation is missing from most of the solutions that are existing in the market, be it in-house, be it a third-party solution. Everyone is just focusing on a binary result, whether a test has passed or failed. Nobody is trying to quantify that what's the impact on the user experience. Is this going to work in this highly competitive market? Then even if you are able to, for example, you want to do roaming testing. Okay, you are a large telco enterprise and you cover like half of the earth. You are there in the Western hemisphere completely. Do you have the device infrastructure to support your testing costs? Again, maybe not. If you are just entering into the market, probably you'll struggle with high capex. And if you already have a device infrastructure, again, you'll struggle with high OPEX, because with high testing and the situations like cooling conditions and all, security, bloating of battery issues, etc., these increase your operational cost, because of you need smart hand support to fix the device issues, to fix the lab issues, things like that. Also, you need to do repair of devices, repair of batteries, replacement, things like that. So do you want to focus on all of this, or do you want to focus on your core business, which is providing seamless network experience? That is the big question. Again, ignoring all of these issues that I highlighted will result in the following, which is, again, major issues post-release, be it network rollout. There is a possibility that more often than not, it happens that, for example, 5G is still rolling out in African countries. Okay, India has 5G network very well, but if you talk about African countries, they're still rolling it out, and there's a possibility then in the initial days, there will be a constant switch between 4G LTE versus 5G. There will be issues in catching 5G network. There will be issues in getting proper speed, download speed for B2C customers. Same applies to B2B customers as well, ultimately leading to poor user experience and poor net promoter score or poor reviews. Again, churn or maybe stagnant revenue. Now, what's the way forward? So all the telcos, on all the techcos backed by telco infrastructure, they need to focus on three things. One is the performance, network performance. One is network experience. And if you club both of them, the convergence, the final result you would want. So let's talk about the art of possible under each segment. So performance, you will have to focus on both functional and non-functional performance validation for continuous improvement. That's a fact. Then you will have to capture relevant data, and you have to leverage AI. Like AI is again available at the click of a button to everyone in the market. So you have to use data intelligently to accelerate issue identification. Is it due to the network? Is it due to the device, or is it due to the application that is used on a device using your particular SIM? Are you able to capture those KPIs, these three KPIs? Maybe not, but we'll discuss. Now, all of this needs to be done on real device infrastructure. I know there are multiple simulators and emulators available in the market for Android devices, iOS devices, all the OEMs probably. But the data that you'll be able to capture will most probably be utopian in nature, and utopia and dystopia exist only in movies and not in real world. So you'll have to focus on real devices and real infrastructure if you want to do real business. Then again, you have to focus on increasing productivity by letting go of manual efforts for low value tasks, and focus on automation, and focus on high value tasks. That's for your internal growth as well. Now let's talk about experience. Now you'll have to focus on core telco services from end user perspective. For example, if you talk about voice, for example, I am making a call from telco A to telco B customer. Is the telco B customer able to hear the voice? Is it too loud? Is it too low? If I'm sending an SMS from maybe in India to a person sitting in France, is it getting delivered? I'm talking about active testing in a very simple way, but active SMS testing in a very simplified way. So is it getting delivered? Can I deliver 10 SMS to the same person in a day? Can I send bulk SMSs if I'm running a telemarketing business? Is it getting delivered or not? Are you able to track that? Maybe not. You might be using a separate telephony app for that. Okay. Let's talk about VoIP as well. VoIP is almost similar as voice. Again, the quality of voice, is it matching the gold standard that you have set in your company's goals and all, like a baseline? Do you have a solution to match that, like audio match analysis? Now, IVR, a lot of telco companies, a lot of other companies, especially if you talk about banking, telephone banking, mobile banking, if you talk about retails, all of those customer services have moved to IVR. So are you able to test IVR on your particular network? Are you able to validate if an emergency number like 911 in America, is it being successfully triggered and attended on your network? Is there an issue? Is there a blocker? How is the experience? We should focus on that as well from end user perspective. Now, talking about apps, if I'm purchasing, for example, an iPhone from Apple's website, am I able to make the payment, first of all, select the particular device in time without any lag? Am I able to add it to the cart without any lag and make the payment without any failure? I'll have to focus on that as well. We'll have to also focus on AV experience, be it gaming, media, or B2B collaboration and conferencing solutions as well. So, for example, there is Zoom. We are conducting this webinar on Zoom, and it's a fact that both Krish and my networks are working very fine because you are able to hear me. But are you able to test and validate this at scale? Are you able to quantify that? Whatever I said was qualitative in nature. It is an opinion. It can be biased. One of you can say and stand up and say, hey, no, this is not good for me. Okay. Again, it's an opinion, but you have to do it at scale. And it has to be quantified to remove all the biases, personal biases and technical biases, etc. You will have to quantify that. Are you able to do that? If not, you should focus on that. Again, clubbing all of these KPIs and issues, you will get actionable insights. Now, even if you get actionable insights, you will have to have personalized or customized visualization solution to make sense out of it. So, for example, there is a data which talks about active testing, pass-fail analysis. So every team in a company, telco company, or maybe an app provider company, they'll look at it in a different way. An individual contributor, an engineer will look at it a different way. A business-oriented person, a product manager will look at it in a different way. More from, how do I say, the impact on the business. So you'll have to have actionable insights for all the teams with easy visualization. Now, for example, you have all of this, but there are multiple competition in the market. Of course, there are multiple competition in the market. Have you done baselining and benchmarking? Even if you have done baselining, that is not enough. That, hey, audio match analysis with this much value is good enough for me and my customers for a business growth. But what if there is a customer who is providing better audio quality during voice calls on their network? You won't be even aware. Even if you are aware, you are hearing reviews and all, okay, you won't be able to quantify it. Maybe it's just a PR gimmick, but how will you validate that? For that, you will need to do a benchmarking, peer benchmarking. So how will you do it? So for example, if you choose, for example, YouTube, you run the same YouTube video on 3 different networks. One is yours, second is competition 1, third is competition 2. Now, you will capture various KPIs across device, network, and the application itself, response time, page load time, search response time, etc. CPU usage, things like that. And you will be able to clearly see that, hey, this is where I am lacking, this is where competition is lacking, and this is what I need to do to beat the competition or stay relevant in the market. But you need to capture the data for that. Again, the convergence. Now, all of this that I have mentioned has to be inside a single view. You cannot have separate Excel files floating around and different solutions floating around with different teams having their own different perspective and biases. You need to have a unified solution for all of this. That is having a device infrastructure in place, having a unified solution to do manual testing, you do automation testing, you do performance regression, you do performance monitoring all in one place. That is how you'll be able to see a 360-degree view of the end user experience. Okay. So I'd like to highlight some key issues in the telco sector and try to align with the HeadSpin platform. One is they want to have seamless communication across networks and location. They want to monitor latencies and have a holistic view of KPIs and KPPs impacting the experience. It can be core telco services. It can be AV applications, AV like again communication platforms, collaboration platforms, enterprise products for a B2B customer, or it can be an FWA solution deployed for a B2B customer, or in fact a B2C customer as well. The end goal is to identify and quantify last mile experience, do monitoring, proactive monitoring, and try to identify how compatible is your network with a particular device in a particular location. So in the middle, you can see there's a pyramid, and all our tech guys, they are driving and creating a baseline of all these smart things that we see around the globe. And the backbone is network, which lies in the center, and it supports smart devices and servers. It collects data, it shares data, it provides all the AI stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis, be it text generation, be it script generation, everything. And combining all of this becomes the B2C or B2B offering of a telco or a techco company, okay? Or it can be a telco's customer as well, which is using your network to provide this digital offering to their customers in various forms: communication services, smart operations, smart cities, digital banking, media apps, and other devices as well. What does HeadSpin platform do? HeadSpin provides you a platform to do manual testing on real devices, be it a mobile device, a smart TV, an Xbox console, and it can be a Roku TV OTT device. It can be a Fire TV stick. You can choose and your device type, your OEM model, and just get going. Not only it gives you a platform to do manual testing, it also gives you to do performance evaluation as well, performance monitoring as well. And it has its own indigenous AI engine, which automatically captures and gives you recommendations about the issues that it has captured. And it captures around 130 plus KPIs across application, network, and device. A double click on this. So what are the top challenges? We are relying on reactive measures for 5G rollout. There is lack of actionable insights to improve core telco services across geographies. Ultimately, it's very difficult to ensure seamless user experience across core telco services and value-added services and other digital platforms such as consumer apps, websites, enterprise apps. How does HeadSpin solve your solution? Very simple. There are 3 steps. One is it provides you real device infrastructure. It can be in our data centers, which are already there in 50 plus locations across globe. It can be inside your premises, like an on-premise setup, for doing both functional and performance validation. It will help you capture 130 plus KPIs, specifically for network and app and device. And it provides you a one-stop shop. It will also give you, it not only captures the data, it will present it to you in the form of a dashboard or a time series view. What's the impact? You can take informed decisions to ensure seamless 5G rollouts and network expansions. It can be a new use case as well, like installing FWA inside an apartment or a business office. You can deliver industry standard voice and data services across different type of devices and geographical locations, and ensure informed last mile experience for core VAS and digital platforms. What's the benefit for the business? Again, if you provide stable digital offerings, best-in-class digital offerings, you will ensure stable revenue streams. Okay, all of this will be data-led. It's not a guesswork. It's valid. It's based on AI data, real data, no biases. So it's completely data-led revenue enhancement across all your offerings, B2C, B2B, anything. Again, by doing peer benchmarking, you have the insider view, what to fix and how to beat the competition and stay relevant in the geography. Again, by automation, you will be able to optimize operational costs. What are the key KPIs that we capture? If you talk about UX metrics, it can be screen change, page load analysis, screen response time. If you talk about videos, we capture blurriness, blockiness, downsampling index, all while a video is being played on a particular network. We also have our video MOS. We also have recently introduced Google's UVQ, which is a better version of the VMOS. And you can also capture network metrics as well. For example, network in bytes, out bytes, network out packets, network in packets. If you talk about HTTP, throughput latency, concurrency, connections, download rate. If you talk about core telco quality of service indicators, you have call success ratio, drop ratio, call success time. If you talk about active SMS testing, we have success ratio, success time. And if you talk about network conditions on a device, what's the signal strength and quality? You can have any of the popular communication mechanism, be it LTE, Wi-Fi, GSM, CDMA. You can quantify and identify the signal strength and quality on any of the devices. There are multiple issues that we track out of the box. It can be loading animation, screen freezing, poor video quality, low page content. Again, it helps you validate how well your network connection is delivering value to the end customer. It can be B2B again or B2C. Now these are, I'm not giving a sales pitch again, so not getting into demo and all. These are some screenshots which will help you visualize how it happens. So if you run a session on a real device, on the top you can see there are some orange bars and all. These are time series view where we capture all the 130 plus KPIs, and the system automatically highlights where the issue is happening in the form of orange bars. On the left hand side, you can see the issue cards. What issue has occurred? For example, battery powered device, loading animation, low page content. How many times it has occurred, for how much time it has occurred, everything will be captured. And it will give you probable reasons and probable fixes as well. And on the right hand side, you can see a page loading animation, and it's a recorded session which you can see later. You can forward it to your developers and end users to look at the session, look at the findings and fix it. Similarly, on the below you can see various dashboards which are created where you can actively monitor and capture custom KPIs as well. For example, page load analysis and all. On the bottom right, you can see these are pass-fail analysis of active SMS testing, whether or not a particular SMS was delivered from one number to the another number, maybe in different locations. And there are failed versions as well, and you can see why it failed. You can do the RCA only once you are able to see it failed in the first place. Now you can also have alerting mechanism set up with our regression intelligence, and it will give you alerts and all automatically. If a particular KPI that you are tracking has breached the threshold, you will have alert mechanism in place so that you can take proactive initiatives to fix it. Now, how do we make it happen? We have our device infrastructure deployed inside a P box, which is a case which holds up to 24 devices, and it has 6 fans to cool the devices which are running the automation test and manual test. So you get longevity of devices, and it is digitally locked. So these are secure, be it inside our data centers or your own premises. For example, on the top, you can see it has been deployed inside FW-enabled apartment lab, which is nothing but a telco's location of choice. And a remote QA team may be based in India or maybe in Philippines or France. They can do the testing while using our platform on a web browser, and accessing the devices may be deployed in USA or Canada. Same goes with media devices. It can be deployed, and all the test scenarios can be functionally and validated, and you can also check the performance, network performance. How about roaming testing? So it's the same thing, but a different use case. So for example, I went to Dubai last year and I took some, roaming package from Airtel, but I didn't know how it will perform. So you can guarantee it. You can deploy a device in Dubai, and your team can be sitting in India and test how your how your roaming is performing and delivering the core voice services, SMS services, and the overall app experience on your network. Because you don't have an infrastructure there, you are most probably collaborating with an existing telco or roaming operators. You do not have a control of the infrastructure, but you'd like to definitely validate, ensure the customer that, hey, everything is fine. You just focus on your job. Okay. So you can, first of all, validate, is the roaming activation seamless? Because once you land, it should automatically activate. Are the call and SMS services seamless across a particular location, which is outside of your territory? How is the data usage and connectivity? Is your customer support number or IVR, etc., is working or not? And is the customer able to use your consumer app and do billings and payments? Okay. So basically, all the activities that can be done in a roaming testing environment can be enabled from our solution. We also provide you a SIM multiplexer where you can have hundreds of SIMs across a selected number of devices, and you can just use the GUI to swap the SIMs across these devices, like a permutation and combination, without having to purchase different devices for each SIM. So yeah, that was it. So over to you, Yanka.
All right, thank you, Siddharth. As we conclude the presentation segment, we open the floor for questions. This is a great opportunity to delve deeper into any topics discussed, or if anyone in the call would like to seek advice directly related to your challenges, this is the time to do so. Please feel free to send your questions in the chat, and then let's make this interactive and insightful for everyone. I know that we are exceeding the 60-minute time frame, but if you are available for the next 10 minutes, just feel free to stay. So I am going to ask the first question that we receive via chat. So the question is, the shift to 5G is also a shift toward cloud native architectures. What is Evolving Systems currently working on to address the 5G service provisioning industry needs?
Thank you, Bianca. I presume that question was for myself. And that's a great question. So Evolving Systems has had a provisioning system called Tertium, Service Activation. The first release was way back in 1997. And over the years, we have had multiple releases, and we are just about to, we're in the final throes of our latest release, which is 8.4. And this latest release addresses things like containerization. So where in the past we used to deploy our system on VMs, we are now fully containerized, and we use container orchestration systems like Kubernetes and stuff to orchestrate it. So we are adopting the latest technologies, open source technologies. So that in itself provides us a good an idea of where we're at and how our systems are performing in terms of support, because they're widely supported. Even though they're open source, there's a wealth of knowledge out there that can be utilized. So we are adopting these new technologies in the latest version. So that's one element of it. Second part of it is to we're completely focused on security at the moment. So that's another big ticket item for us within the product. So we are looking at our development process, our deployment processes, and we're ensuring that we support all the things that a mobile operator would need to look at. For example, secure logs. How do we manage signed containers? How do we deliver containers? The process of signing and unsigning containers. It's all very deployment focused, but it's valuable for where the market is at the moment in terms of regulation. In terms of our flexibility, so we're still improving on our self-sufficiency. So Tertia has been a self-sufficient product. So for years, operators have had the platform for 20 plus years and never come to us for any changes because they can develop their own interfaces. To some extent, they can develop their own provisioning logic. So we are building and improving on all those features all the time, and 8.4 is no different. So we're doing that. And then moving beyond our 8.4 release, which is scheduled mid-March or end of March, then we are looking at the TMF open APIs and what we can do from a interface perspective. So the way Tertia works, it's completely modularized, and the interface agents, as we call them, are unique modular bits of code that are only responsible for communicating with external third-party systems. So we are working on provisioning, source provisioning APIs to support TMF. So that will be the next step moving forward.
All right, thank you, Krish. Before we take the next question, I'd like to remind everyone to please take a moment after the webinar to fill out the feedback survey. Your insights are invaluable and will help us improve our sessions. The link to the survey is in the chat. Okay, and then let's move to the next question. All right, so it says, why should I go for HeadSpin deployment for FWA rollout validation if I can procure my own infra for testing?
Okay, thank you. Great question. So it's a very common question that anyone can procure, 10 devices, 20 devices. They can set up their own FW infrastructure in a device, in a location, particular location. But the problem is, how will you provide a unified solution to, your testers? If you're testing an application, if you're testing network experience, anything like that. But it's very difficult to provide a single solution. Your testing team, they'll have to be in that same location or nearby, maybe. Chances of having a remote QA testing team will be very difficult. Second thing is, if you are running tests continuously on devices, the life expectancy of devices reduces to half or maybe 1/3 if you don't have proper cooling mechanisms in place. So we have the state-of-the-art P boxes which have cooling mechanisms. That's another reason. Also, why would you want to do capital expenditure when you can scale up the infrastructure at your own will and scale down the infrastructure at your own will without having any sunk cost? So that's from a business perspective. And yeah, ultimately, that's about it. It's about having a unified solution, having operational expenses rather than going for capital expenditure.
Exactly. And we have a follow-up question, not necessarily related to that, but also for HeadSpin. The question is, how do you support roaming testing?
So just like I mentioned, you can choose one of the 50 locations across globe, and you can send your own SIMs so that we can install it in our data centers, the real devices. Or you can choose to go ahead with RP boxes, which are used for on-premise deployment. And you can deploy those devices in real locations. Whereas your testers can be located in any part of the world, and they can just use our platform using a web browser and can do testing on various real devices, real browsers, OTT media devices, and smart TVs. So yeah, basically roaming testing is provided by us, providing you real devices at real locations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Siddharth. And for our last question for tonight, how can evolving systems, this is for Krish, how can evolving systems enable seamless 5G service provisioning, and what makes it different from traditional activation solutions?
Thank you for the question. Thanks, Bianca. So evolving systems, I think I might have mentioned it in our previous calls, one of the very few, if not the only independent software provider that provides a service provisioning solution independent of networked equipment vendors. We've been around for 30 plus years, and our solution is quite unique in the way it's deployed. It's very modular. And one of the key factors, there's a couple of things that we do which are unique to us, we believe. So one of them is self-sufficiency. So once a system is deployed, operators can configure the platform relatively quickly. So they can create their own service logic, and they can create their own interfaces when network equipment, downstream network equipment changes, or has been updated, or there's a new release of a product. Those changes can be incorporated by themselves very quickly. As a part of our deployments, we offer training on how that can be achieved. So we do offer a full training suite for training operators. We've had customers who have never spoken to us for 15 years, and we have no idea what the platform does. They just kind of come to us when we need to upgrade it for obsolescence. But that's one of the key things. And the other key thing is the way we carry out our provisioning. So we abstract our provisioning workflow from the service model workflow. So if you think about services, every time there's an offer made, there's a list that we map the features to a service. And those features can go across different network elements. So we completely abstract that flow. So we can actually use intelligent techniques where we don't always issue the same command. So we minimize the number of provisioning commands that go to the downstream. That minimizes errors. In terms of communication, link management, it's all inbuilt. You can take links in and out of service to a particular network element. So if there's a high load hitting that network element, you can increase the number of links to it, or vice versa, you can remove them out of service as well. Yeah, so that's, I would say, our key differentiator from other service provisioning platforms in the market. And the 5G is irrelevant because we support all access technologies anyway to keep ourselves relevant.
All right, thank you for that, Krish. And as our Q&A session ends, I'd like to thank our speakers, Krish and Siddharth. Thank you so much for your insightful presentation and thoughtful answers. Your expertise has been enlightening and appreciated. Thank you also to all our attendees for joining us today. Your participation and questions have made this session a success. We hope the discussion on 5G service provisioning, performance testing, and network optimization provided valuable insights to help you enhance efficiency, scalability, and security on your 5G deployments. If you have further questions or would like to continue the conversation, we encourage you to connect with us. The contact details are on the screen. And we also invite you to meet with us at the Mobile World Congress at Barcelona. This is on March 6th, March 3 to 6, to explore how Evolving Systems and HeadSpin can support your 5G strategy. Thank you again, and we look forward to staying in touch. Thanks, everyone.